Good evening. I'm going to call the October 25th, 2022 regular meeting of the Town Board to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Present.
Councilmember Delarada. Absent. Councilmember McPartlin.
Here.
Councilmember Brennan.
Here.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We wish to respectfully acknowledge that Niskayuna is on the traditional lands of the Kanakahaka and the Mahikanac peoples, past and present, and we honor with gratitude the land itself and the peoples who have stewarded this land throughout generation. May I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the August 25th regular meeting?
Motion to approve the minutes from August 25th.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any changes to those minutes? Seeing none? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. May I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the September 29th, 2022 regular meeting?
Motion to approve the minutes from September 29th.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any changes to those minutes? Seeing none? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Those minutes are approved. May I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the October 11th, 2022 special meeting?
Motion to approve the minutes from the October 11th meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any changes to those minutes? Seeing none? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Those meeting minutes are approved. Now we'll move on to committee reports, starting with Police and Public Safety.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. Our Police and Public Safety Committee was held on October 6th. Under operations, we discussed that the Police Reform Implementation Task Force will be finalizing their report and submitting it to the town board by the end of this month. For fleet and equipment, we are putting a resolution forward tonight to auction off our old vehicle number 602, and a resolution is also up to upfit 604 and 607. Seth Goldstein researched and purchased an interactive reality-based training software to utilize with our interactive whiteboard. And we are looking to collaborate with Schenectady County and applying for a discovery grant to replace the photocopier and scanner. Under building, we thanked Chief Lingerfelter for his department's support and teamwork for letting us utilize the wash bays at River Road Firehouse. For training, we had a lot of news. Officer Guest completed her field training on October 8th. Recruit Spataro continues to progress through the academy, and the reports are that he's doing fantastic. Officer Archambault will be attending instructor development course this month. Sergeant Party and Detective Daly attended a critical incident debrief training, and they obtained certification. Detective Sergeant Frenier will be attending investigator school next month, secondary to his detective assignment. For citizen correspondence, Mary Matz is concerned about the crosswalk in front of the co-op not being safe. Chief Koshin explained that we do still need to push a button to activate the crosswalk lights, and that he spoke with our Schenectady County legislators, and we are in the final step of getting National Grid to light that area. In response to Mr. Gillen and Mr. Mastriani's concerns about Wyoming Avenue traffic, the flow, and the speed, on Friday the 14th, we set up a checkpoint to help slow down traffic. For the fire department, our fire departments number 1 and 2 sponsored Fire Prevention Week last week in our schools, and we're very thankful for this community connection. For personnel, we are continuing to recruit for potential lateral transfers. And our next meeting is November 3rd at 3:30 for anyone who would like to attend.
Thank you, Councilmember Brennan. Moving on to community programs.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. The Community Programs Committee met on October 6th, and last Monday, the town was proud to sponsor our first American Red Cross blood drive. It was an excellent event with better turnout than we expected. We surpassed our goal by collecting 26 units of blood, and based on feedback from the donors and from the Red Cross staff, we look forward to making this an annual, if not biannual event. Fall movie nights began last week. Our first movie was Clifford the Big Red Dog, and this coming Friday we will be airing Scoob. Movies begin at 6:30 sharp on the Town Hall Green, and we encourage families to bring a picnic dinner and blankets. So far, the weather for this Friday looks encouraging, but if we do need to cancel, a town-wide email blast will be sent out by 4 p.m. on Friday. Movie nights are made possible by a grant from the Niskuna Community Foundation, and my thanks goes out to them on behalf of the town for their continued generosity. The foundation and the Community Programs Department are also proud to sponsor this coming weekend's Halloween parade at Town Hall. The parade will begin at 3 p.m. and awards will be given for the best costume in 3 categories. The police department will be hosting an open house where officers will be giving tours and handing out candy. And we will also be collecting jars of peanut butter for Niski Now and gently used children's books for the Schenectady City Mission. Registration for the West Mountain Ski Club has opened and will close on November 15th. Bus transportation is available, and anyone interested in registering should contact Julie Lohr. I'll mention these dates again next month, but save the date. Parents' Night Out will be held on Saturday, December 3rd, and the Town Hall Christmas tree lighting will be held on Friday, December 9th. Moving on to the Senior Center, a reminder that Dottie Gillen is at the center on the first and third Tuesday of every month to answer questions and register seniors for our Unite Us platform. Last week, we began hosting Coffee with a Cop, and officers will continue to join the seniors for coffee on the third Tuesday of every month at 10:30 a.m. Book Club, which meets on the first Thursday of each month, just completed The Yellow Bird Sings, and November's book is Lost Roses. And lastly, a defensive driving course has been scheduled for November 19th. Anyone who's interested in that can contact the Senior Center or check the website for more details. And our next meeting is November 3rd at 3 p.m. in the Schaefer Room. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Moskowitz. Moving on to Public Works.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. The Public Works, Transportation, and Public Facilities, we met on October 6th. At our Transportation and Public Facilities portion of that meeting, that's chaired by Ray, our Highway Superintendent. We discussed personnel issues. We still have 2 open positions at our Parks Department that we are still looking for crew members there. Yard waste pickup is now loose leaf and loose brush pickup. Please check the website, and there's flyers available here at Town Hall, and you can check the website for the zones and when your loose leaf and brush pickup is. CDL, we discussed the CDL driver's course. All our drivers need to be trained in CDL licensing, and we're working with Josh Walters from our water department with Matt Yetto's help in trying to get all of our drivers in both those departments their CDL certifications. We discussed tree planting. The crews planted 23 elm trees. These trees were provided for us by the Elm Institute with some help from our planner, Laura Robertson, there in the back room shaking her head. We continue to plant trees in the town. We also plant trees for the residents during the year, so we continue to do that. We discussed the county agreement for mowing of Grand Boulevard. There'll be a resolution for that. In some of our open item discussions, we discussed the lighting at Blatnick Park on the tennis courts there. We've got some grant money that we'll be able to upgrade the lighting at, and we're looking into that at Blatnick Park. The tennis courts at Avon Crest Park, want to report that that is going very well. The fencing was up and the paving for the courts was done at the time of our meeting. We also discussed Hummingbird paving and utility work concerns. We had many residents from that particular neighborhood show up at our actual meeting, and we explained to them the process for paving our roads in the towns. We use a program with Cornell Local Roads, and we got a very nice letter from the Residents Association there. I'm not going to read the entire letter. I'm just going to read the closing part of it. In closing, please accept our gratitude for your timely response, your professionalism during our interaction, and your follow-up through in improving our roadways. You're a shining example of well-functioning government body. We greatly appreciate you. And that was from the Hummingbird Manor Homeowners Association. Goes out to our highway department, Ray Smith and his crew, who were very responsive to the needs of those residents. Also at the meeting, we discussed some work at the baseball fields and getting the material ordered for that particular project. Dog park, we've got a fence there for large and small dogs, sort of breaking our dog park up a little bit. The highway department also did some facilities work down at our rec center. We had some drainage problems by one door at that particular building. I'd like to report that that's been completed, and we're going to do some more work down here, excuse me, as well as at Town Hall behind us here, these windows. If you notice, there's been a machine out there. We're doing some work there to make some improvements here at Town Hall facilities here. At our Public Works Committee, that's our Water and Sewer Department, and that's headed up by our engineer, town engineer, Matt Yetto. We discussed some attorney items there. These are water and sewer extensions on certain roads in the town, Pierce Road, Whitmire Drive. We also discussed Dish Network. Dish Network wants to do some cellular work on our water tower, so we're working with them and trying to get a solution because we're trying to get some work done at the water tower. We just don't know when that's going to happen. We're discussing painting and doing some maintenance work on the water tower. So we're in talks with them about how to get them the service they want in the meantime. Maintenance at the water and sewer department, we got some mini bids for some pickup trucks, and we have a resolution for a promotion in that department. The utility billing for the second quarter, that was finalized, and those numbers and those bills went out. Our wastewater treatment, our organic waste program update, that should be starting very soon. Hopefully by next week, we'll be starting to take some organic waste for our wastewater treatment plant, to use that plant in the way that it was designed to generate its own energy and make it a net zero wastewater treatment plant. On Saturday here at Town Hall, some of you I know came, we had a shredding and recycling day, and it always amazes me that we continue to fill up a truck almost every single year with shredding for our town residents. That part is a free service that we offer to them. Over 3 tons worth of paper was shredded on Saturday. And we also, you might have seen it out there in the parking lot, a dumpster full of televisions, flat screens, monitors from computers. Every year we recycle that. That particular stuff we pay to get rid of. We have to charge the residents because we have to pay for those things to be recycled. But this is a great benefit to our residents and prevents things from ending up in landfills and other places that you don't want that sort of stuff. And our next meeting will be November 3rd at 8 a.m. Oh, 1 second. I'm sorry. I want to thank all the people that volunteered their time on Saturday. Myself was there. Councilmember Moskowitz was there. Matt Yetto was there. His son was there. Dottie was there. Many people. I haven't named them all, but thank you all for helping and putting in the time for that event.
Thank you, Councilmember McPartland. I appreciate your detailed report. So before I open the public hearing tonight, I wanted to make a few remarks regarding the budget. I'm proud to be proposing a preliminary budget that does not raise homeowners' taxes and maintains the level of services and programs that our residents need and expect. This budget is below the 2% tax cap and responds to rising interest rates by eliminating the use of short-term debt. I am very grateful to so many of my colleagues here in Town Hall for collaborating on the budget. I'd especially like to acknowledge the Finance Office, the Comptroller, and each of the department heads for building a strong budget from the ground up. This process was a complete overhaul, and it is aligned with best practices that began with a 5-year analysis of expenses and revenues to support the numbers. In light of climbing interest rates, this is the first budget in many years where the town board included the cost of purchasing equipment within the budget rather than using short-term bonds to pay for it. With interest rates high and rising, we are following the recommendations of the Office of the State Comptroller and our own fund balance policy to utilize fund balance for these purchases. Fund balance is tax money that was previously collected and is being used to reduce the current tax burden, thereby returning that money to the taxpayers. Our resulting fund balances after this allocation will be commensurate with the fund balances we have carried over the last 5 years and will still be in excess of our fund balance policy and the recommendations of the Office of the State Comptroller. One issue still under consideration in this budget is the $4,700 wage increase for the Office of the Supervisor. We are still working diligently through this budget process, and I am continuing to examine the proposed wage increase thoroughly and thoughtfully by listening to comments, having discussions with board colleagues and others to fully consider this matter. I am mindful of the time, so I will close by saying that this 2023 budget will be a strong foundation for the 5-year financial plan that this town deserves. It is responsive to changes in the economy, conservative in spending and projecting revenues, and I encourage you to take a look at the 2023 preliminary budget transmittal letter that is attached at the start of the preliminary budget document for more information about the preliminary budget, areas of investment, and recent accomplishment. As a last unrelated note, the November Town Board meeting will start at 7:30. With that, I'm going to open up the public hearing. I encourage all residents to limit your remarks to one visit to the podium and no more than 5 minutes of speaking time. There is a timer and a red light will notify you if you are intruding on the next resident's time. Will the clerk please call the public hearing?
A public hearing regarding the 2023 preliminary budget.
Thank you. Now the public hearing is now open.
I don't like to sit too long. It gets hard to get up. Anybody can balance a budget when we use our savings. We have taken over $2 million in our surplus. We have avoided using surplus unless it was absolutely necessary. And I find that the supervisor and our new controller to work on a 5-year plan when the supervisor's office is only 2 years. And whoever comes after you may have a different idea. So it sounds a little ambitious to start to change so much that this almost 200-year-old town has had to put off in 10 months of this budget preparation. In dealing with, I think we're probably going to deal with the supervisor's increment in the regular meeting. Can you look at me, please? And as far as the budget is concerned, if we are trying to find out why the highway department is taking such a big jump and why the format of the budget, if anybody's looking at it, has changed considerably. It is not a town taxpayer's budget friendly. Your concept of what the budget should be, but the taxpayers have no union. Highway has a union, police have a union, water and sewer. The taxpayers have no union to speak for them. So the fact that we are not having a budget increase is only because we're using surplus. So I wouldn't pat myself on the back too much for that. Unfortunately, when we start to compare what Niskayuna does for the taxpayer, I would like to tell you in my 50 years, 48 really, of living here, most of and some of the fee services, I'm speaking loud because I'm having a hard time hearing, and I want to be sure that I'm getting across here. Fee services such as yard waste pickup, and there was a few other things that we had that were paid for by our taxes. We now pay a fee, and that fee is increased every year. Now, according to this budget, we do have a slight increase in our former tax-paid sewer fee services to additional costs. As I recall, in watching a performance of the budget hearings, they were talking about it would be cheaper to use our landfill than to have using a service that would be that we enjoy in the town. Now, the difference of using the landfill for me would be driving to the end of Timothy Lane or someplace to find it when it used to be centrally located. And secondly, they don't pick it up at the end of my driveway. So I prefer to have the convenience and a very, very good monthly rate. I don't, there was a time when I don't expect a lot of you newcomers to realize that we used to bring our newspapers. At the time, we had somebody buy newspapers. Well, that ceased, and we had to dispose of our newspapers in other areas. Now, as I say, you've raised the fees in the landfill. You've raised our fees for some of the, granted, they're picky-owned, but the taxpayer is nickel and dimed to death. And I'm very pleased that you decided to take over $2 million in our savings account to keep your budget at no taxes for us, which includes all you people that live here. I am terribly disappointed that the format of this budget, you didn't have, some of you new people didn't have the experience of the budget under a former controller. It was legible.
Ma'am, you have now reached your 5 minutes.
Oh, that's right. Yes, we have to sit here and listen to all of you. But when it comes to our trying to make some differences, we're limited. I will be back for the regular meeting.
Leslie Gold, 1919 Pawtucket Avenue. I'm very pleased that the town is not planning to continue borrowing for things that should not be bonded. I'm speaking specifically of police cars and other vehicles that have relatively short lifespans. The practice started one year when the outgoing administration left zero in the budget for new cars, and the police actually needed them. And then it just became a bad habit in my mind. So I'm very happy to see that discontinued. There is some equipment that would probably qualify because we have some pieces that last much longer. But this has been a complaint of mine for many years, so I'm happy to see it resolved. I have some concerns. There was a mention during the budget workshops that the yard waste fee would go up $3. That's fine. I wish it were down in the document. $3 is pretty modest from 55 to 58. But there was a little bit about the transfer and recycling and transfer station, because we really don't have a landfill anymore. That concerned me because the controller said something about $130 fee. And we pay considerably less than that now for a permit, but we also pay for everything we bring, depending upon what the particular material is and how much of it, the fee is there's this fee schedule. So people buy coupons, little punch cards, and they are punched according to what they're disposing. So to raise the basic permit fee to 130 doesn't seem justified because there's the other fees that need to be taken into account. And I would really like that discussed before you pass the budget, so we're clear on what's going on. The supervisor's salary was set at its current rate a good 20 years ago. Just looking at the rate of inflation over the 20 years, I think it's warranted. I think at some point a comparison, a little study with comparable communities would be appropriate. I know Glenville pays more than we do. I think it was around 90,000 or something. I don't know if this is the right time for it. I know there might be a legal issue, I'm not sure. And I presume that's being checked on. But I think it's totally warranted and it's not a big deal. And I don't know why the Gazette came out against it, other than that's kind of what they do. Sorry, but it is. I'm pleased that the budget at least contains as much information as the last several have. I will not fault the current controller for the shape of it in terms of how things are lined out, because the process of making it less clear started many years ago with former controller Paul Sebesta, who started rolling things together to make it easier to account for things. I would like a more detailed budget, but we haven't had that in a number of years. And I'm not going to fault the controller or the supervisor or the town board for that. But it's something to look forward to in the future. So please make it clearer, more detailed. And I know there's some big increases in highway, but they're doing a tremendous amount of work. They've been out patching roads and trimming trees back to make winter a little safer for all of us. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Linnell Engelmeyer. I live at 1354 Hawthorne Road. Niskayuna has been a great place for my family and I. It's a special place to live and raise a family, but in some respects, we're not that special. That is, we're not special enough to escape what is going on in the world around us and avoid its repercussions. I actually am super appreciative for the budget that has been put forward. It takes into account, the pandemic has caused supply chain issues and consumer inflation is up over 8%. Nobody wants higher taxes. Nobody wants to dip into fund balances. But it seems to me that the town supervisor has given careful consideration to these factors and presented us with a fiscally responsible budget, one that maintains all current services, avoids issuing bonds for equipment purchases during this time of high interest rates, and is under the tax cap. So do I want to pay more in taxes or decrease fund balances? No, not particularly. But I recognize that when the prices of cost of goods and services rise, someone has to pay for that. Thank you for keeping it as reasonable as possible. I feel like you are a good, responsible steward of our funds, and I am appreciative of that. As for the raise, I would ask a question. Is our supervisor really only working part-time? Should the salary for that position really only be half or less of what our peer towns pay? My fear is that if we don't bring this position pay in line with our peers, we will at some point get what we pay for. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Lemelin. I live at 1106 Glen Meadow Court. Dear Supervisor, thank you for the opportunity to comment on the town's 2023 preliminary budget. I reviewed both the tentative and preliminary budget documents. I also attended all 3 budget workshops and found them to be very informative. I enjoyed hearing directly from each of the town department leaders regarding their accomplishments for 2022 and plans for 2023. I was also glad to hear that the new budget was developed based on actual town spending over the past 5 years instead of simply tweaking previous budgets. Building this budget clearly took a lot of hard work. You and your team should be recognized, especially the new town comptroller. I was happy to see in your transmittal letter, the budget is balanced, including all departmental requests for funding. It includes a cost of living increase for salaries for all employees and does not impose any residential tax increase. I'd like to offer 3 comments on the budget. First, I agree with the elimination of the short-term borrowing to balance the budget and the proposed payoff of the town's short-term notes from 2018. I believe these decisions are prudent, especially in the light of increased interest rates. I've also often wondered if previous administrations were using bonds as a way to spend money without any discussion during the budget process. I'm glad to see this practice stopped. Your 2023 budget clearly identifies all town operating and capital expenses and therefore allows a much more transparent view of the actual town budget. Number 2, I support the use of fund balancing to avoid a tax increase this year. As we all know, this fund balance is simply taxes that have already been collected, and I believe use of this money makes sense. In fact, as was discussed during the 3rd budget workshop, the town's policy regarding fund balances actually requires a spend down of these funds. Number 3, I totally support the cost of living adjustment that has been included in the town budget for represented and non-represented personnel. I believe that everyone working for the town should receive this cost of living increase, including the town supervisor. I've always been impressed with the professionalism and the commitment of our town employees. If we want to continue to attract and retain talented workers, then we must offer competitive salaries for all town employees. For this reason, I would like to see a comprehensive review of all town positions to ensure that our salaries and benefits are competitive and commensurate with the people's responsibilities. I believe the town supervisor's salary is a good place to start. At the 3rd budget workshop, we learned that the salary for the town supervisor has not changed in 20 years. If we were to take the town's supervisor's salary and apply the appropriate 20 years of federal cost of living adjustments to that salary, the current salary for this position would be over $86,000 per year. In my opinion, it's important for this review to be performed by a nonpartisan independent group and include a review of all town employees, including part-time staff. I also believe that the town should pass a resolution requiring that all town salaries be automatically adjusted by the federal COLA adjustment each year. These steps would help take the politics out of these decisions and help ensure that we're able to attract and retain the high quality and committed town staff that we all desire and deserve. Thank you for your time.
Hello, good evening. My name is Ashok Ramasubramanian. I live in 2023 Arcona Court in Old Niskayuna. I serve on the Conservation Advisory Council here, and I'm also part of the 2023 Comprehensive Plan Committee. And I'm here to speak in support of the proposed budget. I've been living in Niskayuna for 12 years, and I kind of like it here. I like to tell my friends that, Niskayuna is the kind of place where, at the end of fairy tales, people say, oh, the prince and princess met and they had adventures and they lived happily ever after. And I'd like to think that they lived happily ever after in a place like Niskayuna. The prince and princess have to deal with mold in their basements, things of that sort. It's a really nice, happy place to live. I have reviewed the budget while others can speak to the specifics. I'd like to point out some things that I really liked about it. First of all, people who know me can tell that I'm very passionate about the environment and conservation. And the budget includes funding for shade trees and parks. I also really liked the commitment to policing and public safety. I have great deal of respect for our police officers and their staff, and I am very grateful for the explicit commitment that the budget makes for them. And there's also a great deal of improvements like funding for a crosswalk at St. Joseph's Way, which is, as a person who bikes a lot, that is something that I really appreciate. And overall, I agree with others who have spoken positively. It's a well-balanced budget, and it's well crafted. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Good evening. So I would just want to take a moment to express my support.
Could you
for the-
state your name?
Oh,
and
I'm
address?
sorry. My name is Ihasui Gomes. It's 26 Bergen. So I just want to take a moment to express my support for the proposed budget. I did review the preliminary budget, and I can speak on a couple of highlights. As a parent of a young family, I just want to thank all who put efforts into the budget for supporting, diversifying, equipping, and supporting our public safety and our police task force. I appreciate securing and utilizing of grant funds for our municipal parks and increased recreational programming. I think a lot of the decisions and allocations of funds are indicative of whoever, Supervisor Puccioni and your staff listening to resident voices like myself. So I want to just say thank you for that. And I think that it's important to note that it was done in a responsible way by eliminating short-term borrowing and, of course, not raising resident taxes. Even though if we're dipping into savings, I think even in your own home budget, sometimes when we have times of difficulty as we are in now in our country, it's important to have that savings for that purpose. And I just want to say that I appreciate that. On the notion of salary, I think that in the interest of attracting talented and qualified individuals, I think it's not only a responsible way of entertaining the notion of incremental step increases, but it's a proactive way of ensuring that we have a talented pool to pick from. I think it was touched on before, and I think if we don't take those efforts and those steps now, we won't have the opportunity of ensuring that we have talented individuals like yourself sitting in that seat. And I think it's a proactive way of ensuring that we can entice people coming from public sector, private sector to come to our town and to donate their talents and their services. So again, just thank you for all your efforts, and it is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Vincent Daly. I live at 2231 Webster Drive, Niskayuna, New York, for over 57 years. I'm here to congratulate Madam Supervisor, the Town Council, for fixing a pension that should have been fixed. The supervisor, I guess, was in office for 3 months and 10 days, and it got fixed, not 15 years later. I'd like to thank our councilman, Bill McPartland. I read this very well, Bill. You deserve credit. And you got the credit through the board because they saw it was the right thing to do. And that's what we got. 2 new police cars. We got new officers. We got better patrols. And that comes from right here. And you should all, every one of you, should be commended for taking the bull by the horns and getting it done. And I thank you. Everybody in the town will thank you too at a later date. Thank you, Supervisor.
Good evening. My name is William Chapman. I live at 1465 Clifton Park Road. I'm also the chair of the Town Complete Streets Committee and enjoy my service on that board. And I've also served on the town board for 3 former terms, 12 years in all. I see many positive things in this budget. I think it's a sound budget. I'd like to start just by saying I think the transparency, the board does very well by that, by having public hearings on the 25th, on the 12th, and I'm sorry, October 6th and October 7th, where the controller is here, the town department heads are here. You've gone through the budget line by line, so any citizen could come, sit in the audience, understand what's going on, what's changing, and also it's filmed. So if you're an older adult, you can't get out, or you have some other issue, you can see that on tape. Very good thing. I'm as chair of the Town Complete Streets Committee. There are many positives I see in this budget. First, I like that there's a line item in the budget for complete streets. I'm very appreciative that in that budget line, there's money for a new machine to do snow and ice removed from the streets. There are many people that don't drive, they have to walk, and having the sidewalks clear where they can get to the bus is an important thing. It also helps to meet ADA compliance. And I'm hopeful at some point we're going to understand that walking is part of transportation, that once we move the snow off of the roads, it's important to start removing the snow off of the sidewalks at the same time. If we want more biking and more pedestrians walking around, we need to do that. I also appreciate that you put an item, that you put money into the budget for grant writing for funding for pedestrian and water and sewer projects. Our police chief, our town engineer, our town planner are busy with the jobs that they have, and you almost need to rely on someone that's got expertise to prepare those grants. I also think having a full-time grant writer or a part-time grant writer on staff is a good investment in money, because there's a lot of federal money out there. We see our neighboring communities like Glenville getting big money for pedestrian projects, and some of that money could really come here to Niskayuna. I also see $89,000 in the budget for ADA compliance. Part of that is curb cuts so that people can get up onto the sidewalk. A good thing, looking at trip hazards. We can see the benefits of that just in the good reviews we've gotten on the co-op block. Many of you will recall that there were 2 steps on there that would prevent anyone with a grocery cart, a walker, a wheelchair of moving along there. That's been taken care of. We now have better lighting. We have push button crosswalks, much safer there. Also, I think the town is contemplating a sidewalk on Plum Street from Van Antwerp that would help make it safer for kids to get to Hillside Elementary. Complete Streets. I'd also like to say on the police department that having a fully staffed police department is important, and I also see that you're putting in an analyst, and that's a good thing. It allows you to look at traffic data and also let you look at calls for service so that you can see where are we getting calls for service and how can we better deploy our staff. Finally, I'd like to say on the town supervisor's budget, again, we have a budget of over $27 million. I was here when the budget was moved to the 53 figure. It's been there for 20 years. So you wouldn't expect your staff to go 20 years without an increase in pay. We have more than 100 full-time staff. Our surrounding communities have understood that this is a full-time position. Glenville's at 88,000. Clifton Park and Bethlehem are all paying their salaries $100,000 or more. The Gazette asks if there are new responsibilities with this position, and I would say that there are. Over the last 2 years with the coronavirus, there have been important changes. You've heard your town department head saying there are supply chain problems that are still here. It may take a year to get things that you order now. There are higher fuel prices. That's more money for highway and for police cars, more money for asphalt and paving. The interest rates are going up. Staff have complained it's hard to find qualified employees to be in planning and highway department. So that's a challenge, not only in Niskayuna, but everywhere. We also have lingering effects of COVID-19, so public hearings. And I also think that the supervisors mentioned better management of our town fund balance, more training. We know that police departments all over the country have had to do training to make sure citizen police interactions go well. So I think it's a sound budget. I think you've worked hard to prepare that, and I'm happy to support it.
Hi, my name is Vicki McCalla. I live at 2525 Antonia Drive. I've been a resident of the town for 26 years. I wasn't planning to speak tonight, but since I did read the article in the Gazette, and I'm just going to speak to the issue of the salary increase for the supervisor, because I understand that that is a controversial topic. And so when I read the article, came away with the impression, well, the supervisor wants to give herself a raise, and she's not asking for the rest of the town board to have a raise. And it made it seem like it was a selfish, thing. So I actually looked a little bit into salaries of the Niskayuna Town Board compared to the Clifton Park Town Board, which is public information. And when you consider the size of the towns, even though Clifton Park is about a third larger in terms of population, their town board makes about a third more than this town board. So it makes sense, right? On the other hand, the town supervisor's salary is much, much less, as other people have already mentioned. It's about half. So that to me says that this increase that that's being proposed is minimal. It's very well deserved, and I would support something even greater. Thank you.
I bet you thought I wasn't going to get up. Linda Rizzo, 2229 Fairlawn Parkway, Niskayuna. I'd like to move away from the Alice in Wonderland place that I think we're getting into, to talking honestly about the budget. There is nothing different in the way this budget was done than how it's been done in the past. I know. Joe Landry did the budget for a good 10 years. He did the same thing. Public hearings, input, department heads coming in to discuss what they needed or didn't need. We had Yasmin Syed, who was here. She followed the same path. The problem with Yasmin, she was a Republican and didn't get much support on the board. I can say that because I voted for Joe Landry and worked for him to get reelected. He didn't. And when she got elected, I got up here many times. I'm sorry, Supervisor Puccioni, I'm talking. I'd like you to look at me. I believed you didn't look at Mrs. Zabin either. I worked hard for him to get elected, but when he didn't, Yasmin got in, and it was always gridlock. The budget had more holes than Swiss cheese. My concern is twofold, and I will get up at the public input for the regular meeting because I'm going to have something to say. I think the supervisor's raise should be out of the budget, first of all. The $4,800 is just the appetizer. The real aim is $100,000. We all know, and I can say this, I mean, I think when people get up to support this, if they are committee people, they ought to say they're Democratic committee people, because the raise, as I brought up at the last meeting, was hatched at and allegedly secret meeting of Democratic committee people in which executive board members attended and a few token committee members. That's how this all got out. Now, whether you want it brought out or not, that's the fact. And someone at that meeting went out and told 6 people. I know who the 6 people are.
Ma'am,
My
this is not
point,
related to the topic at hand.
well, this is what it's at. This is about the budget. This is where this raise.
You want to use this space to personally attack board members and myself. And
I'm
it
not.
needs to stop.
I am not attacking. I'm just telling the truth. This is where
And you're
this-
also spreading misinformation.
I am not. There was a meeting. You know there was a meeting. I know who attended the meeting. I know the names. Other Democrats know the names. The thing was how to message the raise. And my attitude is it's how to dupe the public. The 4,800 is not the issue. The state legislature does not give raises during the session. They wait till the new election. This should be a referendum. It should be next year. Let the voters decide, not a group of committee people and not a few people sitting up here to make that decision. That's a fact. We should follow what the state is doing. If you want to raise and you want the money and you want 100,000 because this 4,800 is simply the appetizer, fine, put that out. If the voters say, yes, we want her to have that money, believe me, I'll get up here and congratulate you. The taxpayers are not getting increases. I'm sorry. 2 people, Democrats in my district, told me, we're not getting increases. We're working 10 hours a day. Isn't this board supposed to be concerned about our salaries? But these Democrats are not committee people. They're people that are putting in time and effort at their work, taking work home to pay the taxes. So I'm sorry, I'm not going along with this thing that you have to have people come up and say how wonderful you are and that you deserve a raise when you took the job knowing what it was. You knew you were a full-time professor. No one forced you to do
That
this.
is misinformation.
Well, you knew what it was when you took the job. You mean you have a PhD and you don't know? You didn't do any research into the job? Give me a break. And I'm going to finish what I have to say about this at the next public when we get to the regular meeting. Definitely. And Bill, I'm disappointed in you.
You've reached your limit.
Well,
Thank you.
Well, somebody
You've
else
reached-
went over a minute.
Everyone else
Well-
was told you've reached your limit.
Well, you know what? I'll get up at the next one and I'll get my 5 minutes in.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Samanak. I live at 866 Oregon Ave, and I am not a member of the Democratic Committee. I am actually going to express my own personal opinion, and I'm not going to do it in a manner that is belittling or condescending or rude. I appreciate that this budget is a product of long-range vision and not short-sighted, myopic ideas. I appreciate that 5 years was taken into account and that we're actually planning ahead. I think that insisting that changes are negative and that we need to keep things the same because that's the way we've always done it is the surest way to stymie progress. And I think that we can all agree that that is not something that we want to do. There have to be new solutions. We are living in an ever-changing world with a rapidly evolving economic situation and I don't want to be rude. If someone else is making noise, I'll just pause. We're living in a rapidly changing economic situation, and I think the COVID-19 pandemic has shown that we cannot, moving forward, continue to do things the way that they have been done. To paraphrase Teddy Roosevelt, it's easy to critique from the cheap seats. But when you are viewing it from the cheap seats, you don't have the bravery of an individual who steps into the ring to take on the challenges, to be the person who is yelled at public meetings. And someone who's brave enough to do that, whether they are Democrat or Republican, deserves to have the benefits and a salary that is commensurate with that level of responsibility and oversight that is required. It has nothing to do with political party and affiliation. It has to do with facts, figures, and numbers. And when you compare those facts, figures, and numbers, which have been cited, and I appreciate the gentleman that brought that in, you can see clearly that this salary is grotesquely undervalued for the job at hand.
Is there anyone else here who would like to speak for the public hearing? Okay, seeing that no one is left to speak at the public hearing, I am now closing the public hearing, and we will move on to privilege of the floor.
Well, I've been very outnumbered, and I would like to finish my dialogue in 5 minutes. When our newly elected 10-month supervisor interviewed for the position, she had very little knowledge. I never saw her at any of the town board meetings, or she wasn't on any committees. And but obviously they thought she'd be a good candidate, and she was elected. She did have to borrow money from the committee, and to my knowledge has not paid back the amount of money that it was going to cost.
That is misinformation.
Excuse me.
That is misinformation.
That is not correct. You have paid for your $2,000 to the former committee woman. I didn't know that. If that's so, I will check it out. The other thing I want to tell you on this raise business, the position was full-time. The hours have never been stated. A supervisor of the historic bedroom, wonderful historic town of Niskayuna is over 200 years old. We have had 7 or 8 supervisors since you were elected that were also residents who were wonderful people who made less than you did. You came in with a full-time job to a full-time job. Now, I understand you are doing a part-time associate professor's job, which has reduced your salary. On the other hand, Clifton Park is 50 times, they have 50 more residents that live there, and it's a bigger town. We have 22,000 people. That's of our last 10-year survey. Now, we also have, when I think about it, 14 square miles. We have not had any additional square miles. And you are pitting yourself against a man who does not have a deputy supervisor, who we now have a deputy who gets $5,000. Plus
That's
she gets
misinformation.
she gets, it was in the budget, the last budget, I guess. And then she gets benefits and she gets a town board salary, which is very good. But I understand that you send your confidential secretary to committee meetings. That's a job of a deputy supervisor. Who needs another title if you don't get a compensation for it? I think since you ran the office and
That
you
is also
completely
misinformation.
desecrated, I have 3 minutes. You desecrated the supervisor's office, not the office for a particular supervisor. It was the office designed when we designed, and I was part of that, this building, and we had our open house in 95. Now you're telling me that you took down all the furniture, gave some of it away, and nobody stopped you.
That is
None of the
misinformation.
town board members stopped you. And I think that you now wanting $5,000, which is ridiculous, knowing what the salary was, you have a 2-year term. And I think what you've done in your 10 months is a crime. And if that's fighting with you board didn't do your job either. You gave one board member 3 major departments and a new board member the senior citizen. That was really a slap in the face. So you can have all the people tell you how wonderful you are, and you don't deserve $100,000 for 30 hours a week. A 30-hour week you have designated as full-time. I'm sorry, those wonderful supervisors that preceded you, Republicans, Democrats, conservatives, they all sat where you're sitting and they never asked for anything. They were concerned about the taxpayers. We have 22,000 people that live in Niskayuna. We have a 14 square mile town, and you're comparing yourself with 30 square miles of Glenville and 50 miles
You've
of
exceeded
Clifton
your
Park.
time. Please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very accurate.
Leslie Gold, 1919 Pawtucket Avenue. I mentioned several meetings back that the sign out near River Road for the recycling and transfer station had not been returned to its site. That still has not happened, or at least as of Friday, it had not. I think a lot of people believe that the recycling and transfer station has in fact been closed because the sign's not there. There's nothing on the website that encourages people to explore the possibility of using it. I know the controller mentioned at one of the workshops that usage was down. I think it's because the sign's not there. There's no mention of it. During COVID, it was actually closed for a few weeks because there were safety issues to be resolved. It's come back, but I've noticed that there aren't as many people. And I think it's a shame because it's a wonderful resource. I know some people think it helps keep the haulers' prices down because they've got some competition there. There's an alternative that's available to the residents. But I think a lot of us use it. There might be a few people who use it because it's a cost savings to them, but a lot of us use it because we simply have more faith that what we bring to be recycled is going to actually be recycled, or at least be presented for recycling. We see the haulers out in their trucks, and every once in a while you see them picking up both cans. And when I've given them a look or even asked them what they're doing, they say, "Oh, don't worry, we'll separate it out later." Well, when you compact down paper goods on top of garbage that generally contain stuff that's going to be wet, you're contaminating the paper and the cardboard, and it's not recyclable. When we bring it to the transfer station, we know it's going into a container that's going to go for recycling. It's not going to get wet. It's not going to be filled with garbage. And I think it's a resource because the haulers are sloppy. There's 3 different haulers in my neighborhood. I couldn't tell you which of them is less responsible. I know I find garbage in the street because, the arms come out, lift up the bin and dump it. And if it doesn't all make it, they don't worry about it. Those of us who bring our stuff to the station, we know what happens to it because we're the ones putting it in. Although I will say Gary does try to help us. He is excellent. But it's a wonderful resource for the town, and I think its budgeting needs to be worked out. The fees need to be worked out. Several years ago, we had a little committee that worked with former Councilwoman Denise Murphy McGraw And we looked at ways of improving it. This is all pre-COVID, of course. Maybe something like that would be helpful. I don't know. But I do think the town should encourage its use. And one thing I didn't note before, we have fees that we didn't used to have because the state allows us to have those fees, and then the amounts paid for those fees don't count as taxes. So it helps the community stay within their tax caps. A little leisure domain in some of us, but whatever, it's legal. My mind, we're still paying taxes, but they're not deductible on your income tax if it's a fee. That's how we got the yard waste fee. That's how we got the utility bills. So there's a reason, and often it comes down to something like that.
Hi, my name's Ellen DeViro. I live at 1322 Hawthorne Road, and I'm part of the CAC, the Conservation Advisory Council. And there's a couple of things that I just wanted to bring to your attention. One, I really appreciate the low mow. I worked on that initiative, and I want to continue for us to use and enhance the low mow areas within our town. There is a pesticide-free program that we started, and I would really like to see us encourage more of our residents to go pesticide-free. That there is really nothing good that comes from a pesticide, nor has there ever. And I also, during the pandemic, I worked from home, and there was a lot of services in the town. A lot of our residents have services that come and they use those single mower, those engines, those blowers, and they would blow for hours on end, blowing leaves and grass, and the emissions that they put out from that are worse than, they're just awful. And I think that we really need to start looking, we need to start to look to solutions. We have to start looking towards our climate. We need to, I'm glad that we're getting cars for the police. I'd really like to see them to be electric. They're faster, they're more efficient, they don't break down. They have the capacity now to be able to, run as long as they have. I've spoken before about this. I think there was one other thing. No, I think that's about it. I appreciate the work and the time and energy that you put into making this a lovely community. And I will see you around town. Thank you.
William Chapman, 1465 Clifton Park Road. I did want to say I spoke about some of the additional responsibilities and other aspects of the supervisor's job. And I did want to say that I believe the 8.7% increase is a modest increase. It's certainly worthwhile doing in this budget. It's not out of the ordinary. I think that the job is a full-time job. I've seen Edwin D. Riley, who was our town supervisor for many years, work hard in that job, and also Luke Smith, who was our town supervisor. I also think the board needs to be commended really for asking the department heads if they have the resources to provide the services that need to be provided to town residents. And each of them indicated that they did in this budget. So the town board has provided the resources to maintain services. I also think the board needs to be commended. There's no property tax increase. And that's good news. We're going to maintain services. We're going to expand equipment and staffing. And those are all good things. I also would just like to ask people to take a little bit of a look at the supervisor's message at the beginning of the 2023 preliminary budget that, in my view, this town board has made some very substantial accomplishments in the first 10 months in office. There's a lot of good things, a lot of accomplishments, a lot of good ideas about better planning in the town, and a lot of things that are concrete things that you've been able to get done. So as a citizen, I do appreciate that very much. And finally, I would say I'm also, in addition to a town resident for 38 years, I am a committeeman. I have been one for 30 years. It's part of kind of tending the community garden. I think people involved in elective office put in a lot of hard work, even as a committee person or certainly as elected officials. You don't do it for the money. It's a minimum wage job, but you get to feel good about working in the community and doing some good things. So I will say again, I think you've made good progress in the 10 months. I think this is a sound budget, and I think people would be advised to be supportive of it. I certainly am. So thank you again.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak for privilege of the floor?
Yes, I would like to use up my 5 minutes. The point of this raise is not the 4,800. That's the messaging to tell us in the community, it's just 4,800. Even in the Andrew Waite article, you talked about eventually more than that. I think it was alluded to going up, what they do in Clifton Park, about $100,000. I want to point out that, first of all, no one is going to leave a job in private sector or public sector that's making good money with job security to come to take a political job that may only last 2 years, and the person could get voted out of office, and putting their family, their home at risk. That's just not going to happen unless the person is ready to get fired. What happens when you have high salaries in public office? You tend to hire political cronies and political hacks. They're the ones. And believe me, people in the United States and in our community are always complaining about that. So put that aside. This raise is not for future people because you want it. I'm sorry, but I don't know many people that want a raise and they want it for someone else. If that's the case, then have the board pass a resolution that when you're out of office, they raise the salary X amount of dollars. Secondly, what is wrong with having it put up to the voters rather than having it for a few people that get up here that are in favor or those that are against it? Put it up next year in 2023. What is wrong with using democracy for doing this? Secondly, Bill McPartland said, and Bill, I'd like to call you bipartisan Bill, that you wanted Yasmin to get a raise and went to her about it. Bill, you criticized Yasmin's budget. You said it had more holes than Swiss cheese. You said that she wasn't working with the board, and you wanted her to get a raise. I find that incredible that you would make the statement. The other thing that I find incredible is that when you voted for those 4 police officers to get jobs, to get the increment in their pension to go on the next step, you told me you didn't feel it was deserved and you were going to vote no. Then you saw the crowd and you voted yes. And when I said, why would you do that, Bill? Why didn't you follow what you believed in? You said, well, the crowd was there. I was upset. And I didn't want to upset the police. Now, you told me that, you told me that, and that's a fact. You told me Joe Landry felt it was wrong. You said the court's decision said it was wrong. You came in and saw the crowd. Now, I'm not afraid to say, I don't think she should get a raise, the supervisor. I'm not afraid to say, you should wait for a referendum, even if people are here that want it. I'm not afraid to say it because that's my conviction. This is the part of hypocrisy. Someone said, Linda, do you have an axe to grind? I said, yeah, a big axe. I'm grinding hypocrisy. That's the thing that annoys me. And I also know that the raise issue was to message it to the community. It came out of a committee meeting that was held secretly by 4 or 5 or 6 people. About 6 Democrats know about it because someone at that meeting went out and told people. And I'm not mentioning names because eventually that will be revealed. My point is, you got your committee people you wanted, you supported and endorsed candidates against those people, you got them elected, they elect the committee, and now we have quid pro quo, or is it pay to play? I'm not quite sure, and have a wonderful evening.
Ihasui Gomes, 26 Bergen. So the previous comments were hard to sit through. I can't help but think that the longing for the good old days of Niskayuna has more meaning than a sentimental attachment to furniture. I don't like to speak out of emotion. I feel like it triggers some emotions, but for me to be silent would me to be complacent with those that are fear-mongering vessels of misinformation. I'm not afraid to say that I don't think that most of that had anything to do with what we're here for. And I think that supporting a budget has nothing to do with an individual or a board member's personal life. Again, I just want to thank all of you for your efforts day in and day out, for attempting and being effective in improving a sense of community in the midst of toxic individuals and their comments. And on another note, I have never seen a salary of a position to be determined by a separate entity or agent or agency of where you receive a different salary. I think that Supervisor Puccioni's professorship has nothing to do with her efforts, her time in the town of Niskayuna. I think that she deserves, everyone on the board deserves to be compensated in a fair way for their time, for their efforts. And I think it's safe to say, because I know right now that I'm scheduled for 40 hours, I can tell you I work well above 40 hours. And I think that most of you probably go above and beyond what's documented on paper. And I think that all of you deserve fair wages and fair salary. And I think that it is absurd to have to fight this harder, to make things this difficult for something that we know to be fair and true. So again, thank you for your efforts. I appreciate all of you and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Lorene Zabin, 2455 Brookshire Drive. I want to give you facts. You can check me out. Niskayuna is the highest assessor town in the 5 towns in Schenectady County. Niskayuna department heads are the highest paid department heads in the county of Schenectady of the 5 towns. We are not people who want to have you up there as slaves. The people that are, now I haven't talked 4 minutes. The people that elect these to be candidates know what the salaries are, know what the town is, has a history of this wonderful town, and you're making a mockery of it. We have a councilman who has 3 major departments to service. He didn't do that with the police department. The police department had more problems when Bill McPartlin was its committee people. Now we've got secretaries going to committee meetings. What's
That
with
is
the deputy?
misinformation.
Excuse me?
That is misinformation.
That is misinformation? Well, what about the other facts that I gave you? Have you ever been associated with any committee before you ran for office? You don't know anything about the town. Your degree and what you did, as far as your what you did with the SUNY is not, I don't care about that. You knew that the supervisor's office was a full-time office, and that was the pay. And Ms. Rizzo was right. This should not be done during your administration. Do it when people are running for the office, not after they are elected. One last thing quickly. You were part of the group that primaried, I don't know about the
Ma'am,
two.
you're just talking about political
No, that's
issues
right,
right now, and
because
it's
that's
not,
all
this
you
is not
are-
the venue
You
for
are
this.
involved in just
This
political.
is not the venue
You're
for
not
this.
involved in the town.
We are not going to have this venue be a place for personal attacks and
I'm
inside
not
baseball
personally
discussions
attacking you
and
as a person.
misinformation. It
You
needs
as
to
a
stop.
supervisor for a town that you were elected to by false pretenses. You can't tell me you didn't know anything about the job. I can tell you you didn't, because we were in a pandemic. We had no public addressing of your ability to run for supervisor, and to hand-picked people who don't even take civil service tests because of you.
That's misinformation.
Thank you very much.
Please stop speaking from the floor.
I am personally appalled by the notion that,
Can you state your name again?
sorry, my name is Jennifer Samanak. I live at 866 Oregon Ave. And if any of my students had ever come up and stated claims such as that without backing it up by facts or made personal attacks, I would be absolutely appalled. Insinuating that the supervisor needs to know her place and that that she should have known the salary is degrading. And I'm just going to call it out as it is. It smacks of racism and misogyny. I'm just going to put that out to the floor. I'm going to call a spade, and I am appalled and disgusted by the behavior of what should be adults in this room. So rather than traffic in rumor, gossip, and innuendo, I am going to just stick to facts and numbers. A quick Google search led me to see that the town of Niskuna in 2018 had approximately 22,000 constituents. And in the town of Glenville, 29,000. So quick math lets me know that that's approximately 75%. So Niskuna had about 75% of the population of Glenville. The salary of the supervisor in Glenville was $80,000. So 75% of $80,000 is $60,000. You can do the math, and there's the salary increase. I don't care what political affiliation the supervisor is, that's the math. Regardless of affiliation, regardless of who knows who or who is saying what, those are the facts. $60,000.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Vincent Daly. I live at 2231 Webster Drive, Niskuna, New York, 12309. I lived in the town for over 57 years. And I came down here tonight to praise the people that deserve to get praised. Councilman McPartlin, the supervisor, Jessica, Jason. I didn't come down here to hear about a Democrat or a Republican or a conservative. That I came down here, I'm on a fixed income, and I wanted to know what my taxes are. And I found out that my tax didn't go up. And that's because good leadership, understanding people working together. Now, this lady over here, I don't know what direction that is, but to be truthful with you, you're doing a phenomenal job. Do you deserve a raise? Absolutely. Why? Because I don't believe for 1 minute you saw the building on the outside But when you got into this thing, you said, oh my God, what am I into? And it happened to me. Because I was the head of a 1,600-man local, plus their family, so you can throw another 3,000 into that. It's a big job. It's a big budget. It's a responsibility that falls on the supervisor. And I commend the town board for helping her. I really do. Supervisor, yes, you do deserve that raise. And I kid you not, because the job is not worth, it's not $4,800, it was $4,700 that you wanted for. So I thank you for your patience, your understanding, and doing a good job for the town in this unit and the taxpayers. Thank you, Mayor.
Good evening, everyone. Angela Antonikowski, 88 Molly Court. I'd like to thank you, Madam Supervisor, and the town board for your work and the transparency on the budget. Having lived in this community now for 20 years, I'm grateful the town under the leadership of Supervisor Puccioni is addressing issues that are relevant to all community members. And given the climate of the speech that I've heard this evening, I'm happy to hear about the continued support of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. It is clear that is needed in Niskayuna. Financial support for the DEI committee, support for our police force, for me is the beginning of steps that I see for Niskayuna moving in the right direction. As a longtime town member, I support the inclusion of talented, intelligent, socially responsible, and socially justice-minded leaderships creating innovative change. And we have to invest in that change. We recognize that we have to invest in the things that matter: quality leadership, informed policy practices, which will require an analyst, full inclusion of all members of our community, and that requires a commitment to work. So thank you again for your work, Madam Supervisor, in the town.
Okay, seeing there are no other residents who wish to speak during privilege of the floor, we will now move on to resolutions. Starting with resolution number 2022-266, sponsored by Councilmember McPartland. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing a contract with Schenectady County for mowing and maintenance at Grand Boulevard and Union Street for 2023.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
4 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-267, sponsored by Supervisor Puccioni. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution retaining a consultant to provide grant writing and administration services to the town of Niskayuna.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
4 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-268, sponsored by Councilmember McPartland. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution permanently appointing water and sewer maintenance workers.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
4 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-269, sponsored by Councilmember Brennan. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing this disposition of surplus vehicles.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
4 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-270, sponsored by Councilmember McPartland. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution permanently appointing a working crew leader.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
4 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-271, sponsored by Councilmember McPartland. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution permanently appointing a wastewater treatment plant operator trainee.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
4 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-272, sponsored by Supervisor Puccioni. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing certain budgetary modifications.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
4 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-273, sponsored by Councilmember Moskowitz. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution employing a substitute bus driver in the town Office of Community Programs.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
4 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-274, sponsored by Supervisor Puccioni and Councilmember McPartland. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing the purchase of materials for repairs at Town Hall.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Is there any discussion?
I didn't hear a second.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any discussion? Well, I would just like to explain a little bit about these repairs at Town Hall. The walls were crumbling just outside of Town Hall. For years, I would drive past and think, wow, why are the walls crumbling at Town Hall? And why haven't they been fixed? And when I entered the supervisor's office, I entered an office that was dirty with dust and dead bugs, with dirty furniture that I wouldn't want residents to come and sit down in. I didn't think it was befitting of the office. Just like I didn't think crumbling structures in Town Hall were befitting of our town. In fact, I thought that the crumbling structure and the dirty office was indicative of what was happening in Town Hall. And I set out to change it and to fix it, because that is what I do. Yes, I had the office painted and new furniture purchased so that the office could then be appropriate for the town of Niskuna. And I also set about asking the highway superintendent, how could we make repairs to this building? And he answered the call. What started out as a $50,000 project, he figured out how to do for $14,000. And that is what we're voting on right now. And that is the type of work that I see from department heads all the time. And you know what? I'll take some credit for that. Because when people like who they work for, and when they are inspired by people who they work for, they do good work and they get it done. And they send you texts before meetings to tell you you can do it. So thank you, Ray. I don't know if anybody else would like to add something, but you're more than welcome to.
I think you said a lot right there in your leadership in making decisions, changing committee assignments, and getting our department heads the type of leadership that they need to get things done. Yes, you, myself, we went around, we made a list. This is what we
Mhm.
need to get fixed. Ray's shaking his head. Make a list. Let's get these things done. And that's what we're doing.
Mhm.
Thank you for your leadership and help in getting these things accomplished.
And I think that's an excellent example of our department heads being creative and stretching our tax dollars. We see it throughout this budget, and it's very appreciated as a board member and as a taxpayer. So thank you, everyone.
Yes, Bill, I want to thank you because you've done a phenomenal job with Public Works, and I love working with you.
love
And I
working
think
with
you are an incredible teammate.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, now that the Love Fest is over, let's vote on this. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
4 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-275, sponsored by Councilmember Brennan. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing the upfitting of 2 vehicles for use by the police department.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
4 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-276, sponsored by Councilmember Moskowitz. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing the acceptance of a donation.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
4 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-277, sponsored by Councilmember McPartland. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing the purchase of an auto flushing hydrant.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
4 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-278, sponsored by Supervisor Puccioni and Councilmember McPartland. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution amending the Consolidated Sewer District maps.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
4 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-279, sponsored by Councilmember McPartland. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing the purchase of a transfer pumps for the wastewater treatment plant.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada. Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
4 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-280, sponsored by Councilmember McPartland. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution appointing an individual to the position of Water and Sewer Maintenance Worker 2 in the Water and Sewer Department.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
4 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-281, sponsored by Councilmember McPartland. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution awarding a contract for a storm drainage project for Belmead Court.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
Four ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-282, sponsored by Councilmember McPartland. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing the supervisor to execute a memorandum of agreement with CSCA bargaining unit regarding the addition of an engineering technician 1 title.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartland.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
Four ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-283, sponsored by Councilmember McPartland. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution awarding a general construction and instrumental upgrade contract for upgrades to town water treatment plant.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, similar as we said before with our highway department, this comes from our water department, water and sewer department, and Matt Yetto's leadership on this. We had gotten bids for this project that were double what this resolution is right now. When those bids came in, we said, we can't do that. We don't have those kind of funds. We're not going to bond those kind of funds. And then Matt and his department went to work and got it in half. So again, same sort of situation, working hard with our department heads to get the most that we can for our taxpayers. So Matt, thank you for your hard work in your department on this, and the supervisor, your help with this also.
Thank you very much, Matt. All right, seeing no other discussion, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartland.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
Four ayes.
The resolution passes. That is all we have on tonight's agenda tonight. At this time, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned. Thank you.